And welcome back to the Marvel Movie Minute, a daily podcast in which we dig in deep to analyze the films of the Marvel Cinematic Universe 1 minute at a time. I'm Andy Nelson from thenextreel.com.
And I'm Pete Wright, also from The Next Reel.
We are, of course, talking about Jon Favreau's 2008 film, Iron Man, back where it all began. And joining us on the show today, Pete, we have Lorraine Dahm-Milligan from Legible Scrawl. Hello, Lorraine.
Hello.
How are you? And welcome to the show.
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Oh, we're so excited. So excited to have you on the show today. All right.
Well, thank you.
And this is going to be a fun minute to talk about with you. So today we are digging into minute 14, which begins with Tony waiting on Rhodey and ends with Rhodey telling Tony what he sees in the mirror every time he puts his uniform on.
Oh,
wonderful
Rhodey.
minute.
Rhodey's caught in the middle. What are you going to do?
This is a fun minute. Of course, we're starting it off. We're still at Stark Industries Aviation Division, a.k.a. Edwards Air Force Base, where they filmed all of this. And you get this last little bit here, which is just a fun little bit of comedy that I think Jon Favreau does so well with Tony Stark as a character. And Robert Downey Jr. plays it so well. Waiting on you now.
Wheels up.
Oh, it's good stuff.
It's so perfect. It's so perfect because of the way Favreau walks in behind him. He's sort of waddling, carrying the bags, and just kind of ducks on the plane. Like literally everything is ready now before Rhodes, and that just sort of feels like his lot in life. You know, it's not a lot, but it's a life.
And I just feel like that gives a lot of background to all three of the characters in that Jon Favreau's job is to kind of clean up in Tony's wake, and Tony is very good at flinging what he's in trouble for back on the person who's peeved with him at the moment.
And we saw a little bit of this relationship earlier in the casino, and it just continues here. And it's clear that this is the relationship that these two share. Definitely, it has a different vibe from what it was in the comic books, which is, I mean, Rhodey was not, he wasn't like the liaison as he is here. He actually worked for Tony. And so it was a little bit of a different relationship, but I kind of really prefer this relationship. It's so enjoyable watching the two of them work together.
You know, I do too. And I think because you get scenes like this, first of all, this particular minute where we have the opportunity to see Rhodes and Tony banter a little bit about, first about the sake and we're not celebrating, we're working here, and you get that feeling that Rhodes is absolutely stuck in the middle of this rock and a hard place right here. He can't get out from under it. And yet he is so easily swayed, which we get toward the end of this minute. And we see how easy it was, with a quick cut, how easy it was to get Rhodes just drunk in the back of the plane and
day
just kind
drinking.
of forget, right. But it's 11 o'clock. It's 11 o'clock at night where they're going, so of course that makes sense, right? I mean, we have that whole bit of logic built in, and Andy probably want to introduce the extended cut here, the deleted scene, but I really like that conflict because it's such an efficient delivery mechanism for the conflict that Rhodes lives within.
It really is, and it's very much this love-hate relationship between these two guys, and I think that the way that Terrence Howard plays it works really well through the film. I mean, really does. Now, as you said, we do get inside the plane. We are going to talk about this extended scene. But before we get to that point, we do have to introduce our lovely flight attendants, all credited as flight attendant. We have Sarah Cahill. She is the first one that we see. She gives that silent, lascivious stare to Tony as she's setting the table. We have Janine Casper. She's the one who says, "Good morning, Mr. Stark. Hot towel." And we have Ricky Noel Lander as the one who offers the sake. So those are our three flight attendants that we have here. This is an interesting...
How are you going to talk about this?
They are women with speaking roles.
Okay.
They are women with speaking roles. Unfortunately, none of them are credited with a name, although we do find out one of their names in the deleted scene. Trixie, which I guess I shouldn't be surprised. This is one of those moments that I don't know how well this would play today in the Me Too era, but I think in context of Tony Stark as this billionaire playboy who fits the mold for what Stan Lee was trying to create with, a character that you would hate who would become a hero. I think it still works, I guess. What do you guys think?
I had to sigh at this particular minute. And we, we're already breaking the rule, Andy, because we don't get to see the part that's so frustrating until the next minute tomorrow. So this is on you. But I do feel like this had to be written to be gross. And maybe in 2009, maybe it would come away with more of an eye roll and a kind of a, shake it off kind of mass market pop culture kind of boys will be boys kind of grossness. For me, I find it really difficult to watch as a father of a daughter. It's hard for me to watch it because I don't know. It feels wrong and out of place to me, but it's gross and it fits the character. I think that kind of fits with what they're going for.
It definitely fits what they're going for. I agree that if the movie were being made today, I don't think the scene would go the same way. I think it would still be there, and I think the flavor would still be there, but I think they would probably strive to give the flight attendants a little more agency in the situation.
Because there is none of that. There is no agency.
There's none of that, but there's also, it varies from the deleted scene to the one that actually made it on screen, but the way it looks on screen is that they had the sake hot and ready to go. So either they knew what was about to happen in the following scenes and we're looking to encourage that, or, it was even grosser than we thought.
Yeah. What does that job interview look like? You know what I mean? Like, I know you've spent years at Delta, Miss Trixie, but we'd like to change your responsibilities a little bit. It's gross.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm not even sure he'd go the Delta route to find the people. It's more like going the Hooters route and then getting them trained to work on the plane. I don't know. I don't know.
I just want to make a pitch here, and on behalf of Tony's narrative, that we have to see him live through this kind of setup in order to buy his emotional transformation, over the course of his total arc with Pepper. We have to see where he started, and where he started is not a very good place. And, essentially this scene marks the same kind of transformation that we get for his emotional narrative that, starts with him recognizing the Stark Industries bomb that blows up right next to him for his professional transformation. And so in that regard, I think on behalf of the movie, I think it works. It sort of has to work.
And that, I think, is the crux of the whole thing, is this is still painting the picture of that playboy that you just roll your eyes at because he's just really kind of a disgusting guy. He's abusive of time of his friends. He kind of abuses his friendships. He abuses his money. We saw him, wasting money at the casino. We see him abusive of the women and throws them away. They're disposable, like Christine the reporter. And this is just a further example of that. And that is you're right. It's a good portrait of this guy that we need to be hating for the beginning of the film.
Well, that's my stake. I think so.
Our flight attendants, just to give them a little more background so we actually know who these women are. Sarah Cahill, again, she's the first one. She is a former Miss Minnesota. This is the second of our former misses. As you may recall, back in the casino, one of the women on Tony's arms was a Miss Nevada at the time. Here we have Miss Minnesota. She doesn't ever speak here, but she does actually get to speak in the deleted scene when she says, "Good morning, Mr. Stark, Colonel Rhodes." So it's nice that she actually did have a line in the extended version. Ricky Noel Lander, the interesting thing about her, she's the third one who offers the hot sake. She was controversially dating the 71-year-old New England Patriots owner, Robert Kraft, less than a year after his wife died in 2011. And at the time, she was 32. That's, I guess, her claim to fame.
Perpetuating a baker's dozen of stereotypes in that relationship. Wow.
Indeed.
Ricky.
A cornucopia of life choices.
Right.
Yeah,
it all leads to this.
Oh, there are some great lines that we have here. And so, kudos to either the improv between these guys or just the screenwriters, but the fantastic nicknames that Tony keeps throwing at Rhodey, like Platypus and Sourpuss or Sour Patch.
Sour Patch.
Some great nicknames. And then I just absolutely love Terrence Howard's delivery when he's like, when you need your diaper changed, let me know and I'll get you a bottle.
So good. Yeah, I mean, back to his character piece, the one thing I wanted to add, which was interesting, because you look at, you listed off the litany of things that Tony was not a good guy about. Well, this is such a great scene because it shows really that Rhodes is taking advantage of these, maybe in these little sort of implied or insidious ways, but he's taking advantage of this relationship that he has with Tony, right? They are symbiotic, and we see that in this scene.
That's one thing that Marvel is extremely good at, is showing male friendship, even when it's not kind of what you just aspire to.
That's a good point. And I think that despite the some of the frustrations that we see with Rhodey in his friendship with Tony, largely just because of Tony's lack of paying attention to things like, the time the plane's supposed to leave, there is that level of friendship. And you see that in just the way they talk to each other, even though Rhodey's frustrated, it still has kind of that level of friendship frustration. And then when we cut to the second half of the scene, when they're drinking and we already have Rhodey pretty much drunk and he's just kind of spouting off, it just feels so natural. And it feels like this is something that these guys have done probably a good number of times.
Yeah, too many times to count.
I like another thing that Marvel does is they kind of throw in little clues, like he was wearing red tinted sunglasses when he showed up to the plane, which is usually what people wear when they're ultra sensitive to light, which would imply that he might be a little hungover.
Mm-hmm.
That's
good. Nice.
And then the Minnesota in me was horrified by the fact that he was wearing a leather jacket in 72 degrees.
It's a light leather jacket.
That's right. All weather.
We do get a tiny bit of the plane here. This is Tony Stark's private jet, which actually is a CG model based on a modified 737 from the Boeing business jets. It's not an actual jet, but I really love the way that the wings, the wing tips go up and then the tail tips go down. Totally. It just kind of creates a very funky looking plane that I really enjoy. And apparently it's got like a third engine, I'm assuming. Is that what that is at the top?
Yeah, I think so. Or
you guys tell?
That looks like an awfully big housing on the back to just be some weird exhaust. That feels like a second engine.
Well, and it looks like there's kind of an actual hole at the very back of it that I assume is an engine. And I'm assuming that this is Tony Stark. These things go pretty fast. And to that point, I should mention that in the script, these guys get into it's a little stronger of a fight when they're drinking. And Tony says, go hang out with the pilot. You'll get along. He's got a personality just like yours. Rhodey goes, I will. He goes up to the cockpit, opens the doors, and it's revealed that the pilot chairs are empty and it's a fully automated flight system, which I think is interesting. We're already entering that world where he's going to be creating these Iron Man suits, and here he is already building planes that fly with no pilots.
Tony, if only you knew what we knew, Tony.
I had been wondering while watching these scenes and had Googled the flight time from LA to Afghanistan, and it was a little over 22 hours.
I was digging into that too. I have a whole thing that I was gonna say for tomorrow's episode for minute 15. But we could talk about it now if you wanted to.
Yeah, I was just wondering, how did they do it in one leg? Because it shows him getting off that plane at the airfield.
It's a private jet, and looking up these planes, they can actually fly. According to my internet statistics, The flight time on regular planes is about 24 hours. But the nautical miles from LA to Kabul is 6,671. Now, the business jets, they can fly about 7,000 nautical miles. So it can do the whole flight in one fell swoop without stopping. Of course, depending on the cruising altitude, wind, all of that, it would fly in about 11 to 16 hours, somewhere in that window to make that flight.
And the plane lands coughing and wheezing on fumes.
Yeah, right.
That seems risky.
But again, this is Tony Stark's plane. He's built it where he doesn't need pilots. So you would assume that he's probably done some additional tinkering in here to actually improve all of that.
Fair point.
Flying into a war zone without a pilot.
On fumes. That's great.
Right, I know.
It is a cool plane. And to your point, that first shot that we get of Tony in there right behind him, is that it's a Stark family crest, right?
Yes, House Stark.
Exactly. If only he knew about the generations war between the Starks. It's just, it was good.
It's so funny. And I saw that and I'm like, is there a Stark house that I've never seen in any of the comics or anything? I could not find anything about this. So I think it's something maybe they created for the movie. I don't know, but it's like a funky two-headed bird or something. I couldn't figure out exactly what.
I started looking up other Stark family crests, and I couldn't find any that looked like this.
I kept coming up with wolves.
Yeah. I did find some other, there was a lot of fleur-de-lis. There's one I found that was in Scotland and America. It's like a giant bull and a hand reaching up out of the ground, holding on to one of the horns as if it's hanging on the horn and the bull's head is turned sideways. It's really gross. And there's another one right next to it.
That's like a straight up zombie attack. What is going on?
It's even worse than that. There's another one that says House Stark, and it has the cow's head and that same fist, but this time the cow's head has been severed from the body, and you can see that this fist is reaching up out of the ground, holding the bloody head of the bull. And so that's like the Scottish House of Stark. And I found nothing, that had the two-headed bird on it.
I think I prefer the two-headed bird. I feel like if it was a hand holding a severed bull head, that people would be talking about that a lot more and not paying attention to
exactly. That was probably smart.
Wow. What?
Yeah. It's crazy.
It's so gruesome.
It's just crazy. These crests, don't go searching the internet for family crests. That's the rule.
Now I'm really curious about that family crest. Why did they pick that as their crest? It's like, what's the guy's name in Game of Thrones who flays his people, and his banner is the
Bruce Bolton,
the skinned person.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's like, why do you want, I guess it's a power thing to advertise that, but still.
Yeah, you want everybody to know that's what you stand for.
Yeah. Wow. If you're someone who flays people, you probably are proud of that fact.
You literally can hang a flag on it.
Oh.
You're welcome, everybody. You're welcome.
Someone wants to stand in the corner.
Oh, well, anyway, back to the movie here. So we have that great cut, again, Favreau and his timing for comedy transitions as we cut to the drunk scene. And now we've got a music video playing behind them, and it is Ghostface Killah of the Wu-Tang Clan playing the song Slept on Tony, which he released on his album Ghostini the Great, I guess is how you would say that.
I don't have that one in my catalog right now.
I don't either. I'm not. I haven't listened to a lot of Ghostface Killah. How about you, Lorraine?
I have not. However, that video is not the video for that song. It's a different Ghostface Killah video, which I do not know the name of.
Well, that's. I'm glad that you pointed that out, because I was looking for the video. I kept typing in "Slept on Tony." Ghostface Killah, and I could not find a music video. So it's now that I find a really interesting point that it's a totally different Ghostface Killah song. So that makes sense. And now I'm curious what that is.
Yes.
I guess Ghostface Killah actually has used the alias Tony Stark and Iron Man in his real life. And he even named his 1996 album Iron Man. So he clearly is a fan. He actually was in a scene in the movie, I guess, but got cut.
Huh.
Little known facts. So we end the scene where again, we have our flight attendants and we see them jamming out. This is where we get some of the, a little bit more of the scene. We get more of the talking here, and the extended edition has kind of quite a bit of this. But the interesting thing is that if you're watching these flight attendants in the version that played in the film, their logistics make no sense where they are standing, because there's edits that they had to use these attendants to kind of shorten it. And so if you're watching the three of them, you'll realize that when you cut to Tony and then you cut back, it's a different flight attendant standing next to him. And I think they had to just find a way to speed this scene up, and that's what they did. It all makes a lot more sense when you're watching it in the extended edition. It's just a lot slower. But you also get to see why Tony's glasses all of a sudden disappear.
This is one of the, back to the question that we started with, and we'll move on because we can talk about this, tomorrow when we dig into the meat of it, so to speak. But my question is, do you think their primary intention was to speed up the scene, or to somehow, balance out what a non-trivial portion of their target audience would find offensive?
I don't think they were trying to balance out anything offensive. I think they just wanted a quicker scene. Tony is a character that kind of thrives on creating chaos, and the scene as it shows in the movie is very chaotic. You have noisy music and dancing flight attendants, and he and Rhodey having two different conversations, and I think the faster pace matched.
I am inclined to agree, because as you watch the extended cut, the pacing is really painful. Really slow.
Yeah.
It is. And I mean, granted, it's not completely edited. It doesn't have the music and all that sort of stuff, but it just feels like a slow scene. And you can see why they really wanted to move through it a lot quicker, because it's not giving you really any additional information that you need.
Fair enough. I'll stand down.
Yeah. But I think that's it. Do you guys have anything else you want to talk about as far as this minute is concerned?
It's always fun when we get little minutes like this within a larger action movie, because it's still a fun scene to watch and there's still things happening, but it's not an action scene.
And obviously movies need these scenes. So that's a great point, that there are still elements coming through in this scene that we do need. So cool. Lorraine, again, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Where can people find you? Where are you living on the interwebs?
If you enjoy my voice, you can find me at Legible Scrawl and Monday Matinee. And if you'd rather just hear me talk about writing or reviewing superhero movies, you can find me at Tickled Ink on Blogspot.
Excellent. All right, everybody. Well, that is it. Thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure you subscribe to the show for free at marvelmovieminute.com. Join us over in our Discord chat room and follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at The Next Reel. And if you like what we do and you want to support us and get some cool stuff, why don't you become a patron over at patreon.com/thenextreel. Until next time, true believers.